This one was a lockout, tagout issue, essentially. You've got a dump truck parked in the lot. They come in, it's up on Columbia Boulevard, and they come into this lot. It's the trucking company's lot where they park their equipment. They come into this big gravel lot, and they pull around, and then they'll back their trucks in wherever they're going to park them. And this driver had come in, checked in at the office, and he said, hey, I got an air leak in one of the brake controls on the trailer. Would you get someone to check it out? So the supervisor, the maintenance supervisor, assigned the worker to, he said, well, I'll get the truck pulled around here and we'll go ahead and take a look at this air brake leak and get it fixed, because this is a priority problem, it's got to be fixed. So the mechanic went and got his tools. The supervisor from the shop pulled the truck halfway around the yard, and as he pulled around the yard, another truck driver had just backed his truck into position and was waving at him. Hey, get over here, I got a problem. So the supervisor stops the truck, gets out of it, comes over in this area here, and he's discussing the problem with this other driver on this other truck. Well, the mechanic thought that's where he was going to stop for him to work on it. So the mechanic comes back here, and do I have a mechanic here somewhere? He comes back here, and he walks around back this way. He can hear a leak back here behind the trailer, and he crawls under the trailer. The supervisor didn't see him, and he gets back in the truck. He assumed he was going to pull it back up to the shop where the mechanic was going to do the work, and he didn't see him at all, and he ran over him. That's a lockout issue, and a lot of times I think companies look at lockout, tagout, and they say, well, it doesn't apply to trucks. It applies to equipment. Anytime you have the potential for somebody to accidentally start something or take off with it, you need to have a program in place. That truck, the mechanic should have had a procedure where, okay, if I'm going to crawl under that for any reason, I go in, I take the key, I put a tag on the steering wheel, I'm working on this truck, no matter what. If we get it, you see it in factories with equipment, but it applies to trucks as well. Okay, the next one, well, before I go on to that, the next three actually have to do with brakes on trucks. And this one's a FedEx truck. He was actually pulling a trailer with a pup trailer behind it. I think you see him going down the freeway all the time. And he was hooking up a pup trailer to the trailer in front. He's got the trailer in front, and he was hooking a pup trailer up. They backed up. There were two of them, a team driving situation. They backed up. This is on a slight hill. Most of these loading areas are some kind of a slight hill. He had backed up to that trailer, and his partner went out to hook up the glad hand. You know what a glad hand is? It's the hose from the trailer to, well, in this case, to the next trailer that hooks the air system up so the brakes will work. Well, he went back, the operator had went back to hook up the glad hand. At the same time, the other guy went back to crank up the landing gear. The landing gear is this stand that the trailer sits on. So he's standing between two trailers, and and the other guy hooks up the air. They forgot to set the brake in the truck, And the trailer was fine. The one that he had backed up to was fine when it was sitting here by itself because it didn't have the brakes hooked up. But as soon as he hooked that glad hand up, the brakes released because they got pressure, and the truck, sitting at a bit of an angle, went backwards, and the two trailers come together. And he was crushed between the two trailers. Failure to set brakes. It happens all the time. That's one. I was just putting a picture of this. I do this one presentation strictly for the trucking industry, but you've got the red trailer air supply, and it's not for parking. And then you've got the parking brake that you're supposed to use when you set the brake to park the vehicle. And frequently they'll stop the vehicle, they'll leave it idling, and they'll set the brake. You'll hear it when they get out of the truck. And that's the yellow one that they should be applying. This next case, I guess what's sad here, the guy was retired. He was done. He had retired. He had just got his first retirement check. One of the drivers that they'd hired didn't show up, so they asked him to come back and drive for them for a couple of days. And that's when the accident occurred. And in this case, he was backing up his truck. Yes, I can use my prop. To a loading dock, and he backed up to the loading dock. The guy inside looked at it and said, "Hey, your trailer's too high. It's above the loading dock, so they can't drive the forklift in it." That makes sense? So a lot of times, at least the truckers tell me, that they will drive with this axle on the rear of the trailer. They'll drive with it forward in the cities because it's easier to get around. It'll make the corners better. I think there's some load reasons for doing that too, but for the purposes here, they do it just so they can get around in the city. Well, that makes that trailer sit a little higher when you back up to a loading dock. So he took, and you have to come back here and pull a pin, and he pulled the pin, and then you get in the truck, set the brake, the trailer brake, and then drive the truck forward, and then it'll go to the back. Does that make sense? And then back it up to the loading dock and load the trailer. It dropped it down, okay? That makes sense? So he gets done, he comes up here, and he pulls the truck up here to get ready to leave. The only thing he's got to do, he's got the barn doors that open like this in the back. He pulls up here to open the barn doors, to close them, because they had to open them in order to get up to the loading dock. So he pulls up to do that. He's had a habit of using the trailer brakes. You know, it says not for parking brake, but he used the trailer brake when he got out of the cab of the truck, just set the yellow trailer brake. Well, when he had set this pin, originally, when he slid this back, he forgot to relock on the slide rail. So he set the trailer brake. Well, the truck's sitting on a hill. It rolled back. He was standing behind the truck talking to the guy on the dock, and the truck rolled back and crushed him. Mike was retired. He said he tried. He said, "Hey, your truck's rolling." And he said he had a choice to go right or left. And he said the victim chose the left. He said if he'd gone right, I think he could have got out of there, but he went to the left and he didn't make it. You know, it's one of those split-second decisions, and he just went the wrong way. And it wasn't that far away, and it happened that fast. But yes, he saw it. The next one, again, having to do with brakes. This was the Oregon City. They were repaving or remodeling Washington Street, and they're taking all the old asphalt from the street, loading it into dump trucks, and then taking it out to a reclamation place in Malala, a rock pit, where they're digging rock out and bringing it in to make the new road. But as they dig out an area, they have to refill it to refill the area as in the long-term process. It's called a reclamation area in a quarry, rock quarry. And he was down in this reclamation area, and he was dumping the material that he had taken from Oregon City. Again, you can see this is on a hill. How many times trucks and brakes and hills don't mix? He's on a hill. He backs down. Now, when he backs down, they take, the way I understand it, they'll take and back the truck and trailer off to the side, and then dump their pump trailer off to the side, and then they can, or let's see, I get it backwards. They dump the first one, dump the main box, and then they can pull up and then dump the pup trailer after they've dumped the main one. And when he dumped the main one, the main box, a piece of asphalt had dropped down and busted the glad hand off of the air supply going to the rear trailer. And now, none of us get upset or anything, but you know, it happens where so many things go on, you get something like that happen. In this case, he's got 5 dump trucks lined up behind him that need to dump in there. And he's sitting there, and he tries to pull out, and he can't because that glad hand broke off, and he don't have any brakes on his rear trailer. So somebody on the CB radio got on and said, well, just go back to your pup trailer and loosen all the brakes on all 6 wheels. If you do that, then you'll be able to get out of here. And then the other people can finish dumping. So he did. He went back there, and he went and he undid each one of them until he got to the 6th one, which was right here, I think. And he unloosened the 6th one. He forgot to set the red brake lever in the cab of the truck, and when he went to release the 6th one, the whole thing backed down, and he was crushed under 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of tires. I talked a little bit about lockout tagout in the first case involving trucks, where they went under to service the truck. Another case involves a trailer that dumps, or the door opens in this fashion, and it's an interesting trailer. Let's see, I got a picture of it here. This thing was specially made to deliver bark mulch, and they had it made in Idaho, and they had it made just for this guy because he did that work. And the trailer's only like 6 months old. It's relatively new. He's been driving it for a while, and he's delivering out in the Hillsboro area. And you can see this has, back here, there's a small door, and then there's the big door. And the big door opens like the one on this trailer here. And the small door, what it does is, for delivery purposes, he can unlatch that, and there's a conveyor inside that runs, and it'll run the material out through that small door. And then when he gets done, they will haul maybe bark mulch this time, and then the next time they'll haul bark chips. So it's important to clean the truck out after each load so that you don't contaminate it with other material. So he had dumped the material. He had then opened the back of the truck, and he was in the back cleaning it with the conveyor running, and they shouldn't have been, but he was in back cleaning it. And this has levers on the side, right where this gentleman's standing. It has two levers, one to control the conveyor, and the other one controls the door. And he was inside with the door open, and he had a broom in his hand, and he needed to close, or he needed to shut off the conveyor. So he took his broom and he reached around the corner where the controls were at, and he hit the control to stop the conveyor. At the same time, it hit the control that dropped the door, and he was crushed between the wall of the trailer and the door. Now, when we get to Mr. Potato Heads here, I'm going to talk a lot about red flags, things that happen before an incident that should have been evaluated to prevent the accident from occurring. In this case, the morning of the accident, actually it was the day before the accident, he was going out Highway 84 toward Hermiston, and he looked in the back and noticed the material that was coming out the back of the trailer. And he went back there, and the lever that controls the conveyor had actually dropped down and had started the conveyor, and it actually busted that bottom door and was dumping material on the road. He took and he attached a bungee cord to that lever, to that control lever, to keep it in the up position so that it would quit dumping the material. And he went about his business, and he didn't report it at the end of the day. The bungee cord was still on there, and it looks like from when I got to the scene that when he went to pull that other lever with the broom, the push broom, he got the push broom tangled in the bungee cord, and it activated the door switch. Okay, let's see how I'm doing for time. All right. Next one. Log truck. Now, it's interesting. This gentleman had actually worked in industry in town, and he had a friend that said, "Hey, if you want to come out," because he was really discouraged with his work, and he decided that he wanted to get out, get away. And he had a friend that had a logging business, and he said, if you want to get out and learn how to log, I'll take you on. If you're serious and you work with me, get your CDL, I'll teach you how to run a log truck. And yeah, I'll do that. I really wanted to do it. So he gets a friend, the supervisor for the trucking operation, and he tells the supervisor, "I want you to teach him." And he took him out and drove with him. He drove with him for a couple of weeks. He worked until they got him up and was able to get his CDL. He got his CDL, and he spent another month with the foreman and with other drivers, driving up to the logging site, picking up logs, and going down the mountain. The day of the accident, he had picked up, actually he had picked up a load, he had taken it to the mill in Malala, and his brakes were smoking. When the scale house attendant at the mill told me that when he pulled in, his brakes were on fire. His rear brakes on his trailer were on fire. And he said he was really frustrated. He didn't know exactly what to do. Some of the guys got together and helped him, and they had found that if you see a log truck going down the road, they have this section slides out, called the reach, so that you can adjust it for whatever length of logs you have. And if you notice, there's the hoses, the air hoses hanging down, so that you can, when you retract it, they're hanging pretty close to each other, and then when you get it out there, you can stretch it out quite a ways and still have the airlines. Well, his airline had hung too low and had actually rubbed on the ground and rubbed a hole in it, and it was leaking air. He went back up to the landing, didn't say anything to anybody, got 80,000 pounds of logs on the trailer, and headed down the mountain. And as he got to, well, before he got to this particular spot, his brakes were out. They got too hot, and they weren't stopping the truck at all, and it was going downhill fast. He got to this point, he knew there was a 90-degree corner ahead, and he opted to jump out to get away from the thing. And he jumped out there, and unfortunately, there's a hill right here. He jumped into this brush up here and immediately rolled right back down on the road, and the truck ran over him. Now, Lewis, Tony, had taken, when I got to the truck, here's what the truck looked like after it missed that corner. That you really can't see it. These are logs. There's part of a fender. There's part of the truck there. It went right over the top of the cab of the truck. He wouldn't have survived had he stayed in the cab anyway. But when we got that mess out of there, loaded back up on a wrecker and brought into where we could inspect it, the first thing, I am going through the brakes, because we cage the brakes so that we can inspect them, see how much brake is left on them, if it was a maintenance problem with the brakes or whatever. And in this case, the brakes were fine as far as thickness of material left on them. They had obviously overheated, but I found electrical tape wrapped around the damaged hose. And when I found the electrical tape wrapped around a brake hose, it's like, what's going on? And that's when I traced him down and then got to the mill, and they told me about the accident, or his brake hose failure. And, you know, I went to his supervisor, the foreman of the trucking group, and I asked him, what do you teach them? He said, well, he says, you know, that's a common problem. He goes, I don't remember if we talked about that or not. He goes, I carry, there's a brass coupling, that if you have a damaged hose, there's a brass coupling, it's DOT approved for repairing a damaged brake line, that you have to cut the line and splice the brass fitting into. I usually have one with me, but I didn't bring it today. It's about a $12 part. He said he carries one with him, but he doesn't require that everybody carry them with him. That's up to the driver. And of course, your driver has to have experience to know whether or not they need that kind of equipment. Wouldn't it be better if people were trained, if that was a checklist, if that equipment was kept in all trucks and they were taught how to use it, how to recognize the hazards?